So we're now headed into our afternoon of panels. With the second panel, we're going to get into the topic of uncovering teachers' potential to improve girls' skills development through mentoring. We will start this panel off with two presentations from two of our Echidna Global Scholars. The first one will be from Christine Apiat-Okudi, who is the Education Quality Manager at Promoting Equality in African Schools, PEAS, Uganda. And she's our Echidna Scholar. Then our second presentation will be from Joyce Kinyanjui, who is the Program Manager and the previous Executive Officer at Women Educational Researchers of Kenya, WORK. So after their presentations, we will go into our moderated panel, moderated by Lucy Lake, the Chief Executive Officer of CAMFED International, and our panelist joining them is Eugenie Mukanahele, who is the National Coordinator of the Forum for African Women Educationalists in Rwanda. So without further ado, please welcome to the stage Christine.
Thank you, Christina. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for coming to these presentations today. I'll be looking at policies for senior women teachers to improve girls' secondary education in Uganda. A senior woman teacher is a female teacher placed in schools as a gender pivot. This is a position that has been placed in Ugandan schools under a policy guideline as a basic requirement and a minimum standard for setting up an education institution. You'll find that this is not a new thing. You'll find the senior woman teacher called as a mentor in some cases, a facilitator, or even a matron. Girls in Uganda will only have 23% of them transition from primary to secondary, and of these, only 35% will be able to complete their lower secondary education. This is due to several challenges, which include the patriarchal nature of our society, which accords very low value to girls' education. You'll find there's early marriage, pregnancy, heavy domestic chores, and lack of basic necessities. To understand the senior woman teacher better, I carried out a study. This was to find out the current responsibilities of the senior woman teacher, but I also wanted to know how she's being supported in terms of finances and training, and I also wanted to know the impact she's having on girls' education. I did the study in 32 schools, similar to the one I had shown above, and I interacted with the girls, the senior women teachers, the principals of the schools, government and non-government organizations, parent teachers associations, and board of governors. I administered questionnaires, conducted focus group discussions, and had interviews. I also did desk reviews of policies and other information around girls' education. From the survey, I found out that in order of hierarchy, the senior woman teacher is viewed by the stakeholders in the following ways. She's seen as a counselor. This she does to individual girls, but also in groups. She counsels them on career development, growth, and she's also somebody who talks to them about behavior management. She will also talk to the girls about personal problems, especially those emanating from their homes. She is also seen as a health teacher. This she does in the clubs, where she will talk to the girls about issues around sex and sexuality. Some of these things are seen as taboos, and girls cannot openly talk about them. But the health teacher will be able to direct their discussions and tell them about what it's all about. She is also a role model. She is an example in the society of somebody who has managed to stay in school and complete and be successful. So the girls would like to be like her and emulate her as a teacher. The senior woman teacher is an advocate, both within the school and outside in the community. She will attend meetings and talk to the communities about the values of school education, but within the school, she will also try and highlight issues around the girls' comfort. For example, having separate and clean toilets for the girls. the senior woman teacher is seen least, but important, as a skills teacher. This she does through after-school activities like the music, dance, and drama, games, debates, and through these activities, she's able to develop their skills in leadership, teamwork, and also communication skills. My survey was able to establish that the senior woman teacher is actually approached by the girls at least twice a term. 82% of the girls were able to attest to this. Despite her being able to do all this, you'll find that she is faced with a number of challenges. My survey revealed that the senior woman teacher has unclear responsibilities, and this has resulted into the position not being recognized by the teaching service in Uganda. Due to this, the role has an unclear job description, and the senior woman teacher undergoes little or no training. There is also lack of adequate supervision, evaluation, and compensation for the role. The senior woman teacher, first and foremost, is identified as a teacher. So the role she is playing is just seen as an extra and not allotted any time. She is also given no office space for her counseling or budget through which she can perform the activities to support girls to stay in school. And on the other hand, there is little or no support both from the school administration and the community, because she is talking about things which may be seen as out of context. However, despite these limitations, you'll find that there are good practices out there by organizations like Age Africa, Peace Uganda, BRAC, and Discovery Learning Alliance that have used female teachers to enhance educational outcomes for girls. I therefore recommend that the Teaching Service Commission of Uganda recognizes the position of the senior woman teacher and accords it a clear job description and objectives. I would also recommend the professionalization of the role, because this role is very important, as was highlighted by the Education Commission report of 2016, that we need more teachers and that we need to professionalize the teaching service. So we should have more recruitment of female teachers by providing them with attractive and conducive conditions in terms of housing for teachers in hard-to-reach areas. Furthermore, we need to train and upskill them so that they're able to support the girls to enroll and stay in school. This will be in terms of certification to add onto their portfolios, and also adequate supervision, evaluation, and compensation for the extra role they are playing. In conclusion, I would like to say that the senior women teacher will be a career path to the young female teachers to join and stay in the profession and become school leaders and develop the necessary skills and knowledge to support the outcomes in girls' education. Thank you.
So thank you, Christine. Thank you all for coming. Now, this session, my presentation will be on So I will be looking at mentoring for Kenya's marginalized girls. I will look at the benefits, I'll look at the challenges, and I'll also look at the policies that should be in place if mentoring is to take part effectively. Now, in order to understand the barriers to girls' education, I wish to introduce Tito. Now, Tito is a typical girl growing up in marginalized areas in Kenya. Now, as a girl, she's not as valued as her brothers. She is 12 years old and in grade 3. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, sorry. So in order to understand the barriers to girls' education, I wish to introduce Tito. Tito is a typical girl growing up in marginalized areas in Kenya. And you can see I'm dressed like her. I'm representing the Maasai community. Now, as a girl, she's not valued as her brothers. She's 12 years old and in grade 3. She walks an average of 6 to 10 kilometers to and from school every day. Early this year, she underwent female genital mutilation and is now eligible for marriage. All her friends are excited about the prospect of getting married, but Tito wants to pursue her academics and also have a career. In her village, there are very few girls who have transitioned to secondary education, so she has very few role models. The only educated female is her maths teacher, Mrs. Sankale. Tito is concerned about her academic work because she has been steadily falling further and further behind since she started menstruation last year, because she has to miss school 3 to 4 days in a month because of lack of sanitary pads. Being the eldest girl, Tito has to take care of her father's goats and also her younger siblings. She feels overwhelmed, as we all would be, and she needs someone to talk to. To better understand how mentoring could better serve girls like Tito, I did a combination of things. First, I did a desk review of reports, of programs, and documents that talk on mentoring of marginalized girls. I also looked at government documents, policies, and strategic plans. I also interviewed students, 200 of them, and then administered questionnaire to about 2,000. Now, these are girls that are in the program that I'm currently managing. Now, 20 teachers who are in charge of these girls and the principals of 63 schools. What was interesting about these schools is that they had an access and retention rate that was higher than the national averages of 86 and 83%. So I wanted to know what it is that they were doing different from other schools. I interviewed 7 NGOs that are members of the National Steering Committee that is charged with developing a mentoring policy for Kenyan schools. And also I consulted widely with experts in girls' education. So what I found in my research, why these schools succeeded, one is that they taught life skills. So there is debate on whether they can be taught, but they actually can be taught and learned. Then 2, they built after-school girls' clubs, or sometimes just creating space within the school or outside where the girls discuss the physical and sexual development. Now, this is a big thing because in many communities, this topic is taboo. And they also discussed FGM and early marriages. So using a rights-based approach, the girls are able to begin to question some of these culturally held perceptions and also attitudes and practices. They also learned to lead. They acquired leadership skills. They mentored each other and supported each other academically through study groups. They also saw role models. So we had alumni. Some were using alumni, some were using role models from the community, parents who would come, and what that did is that it was able to sort of demystify the idea that a woman can actually have, can fit within the community and also be educated. So it was able to motivate them to remain in school. Now, number 4, they received counseling through one-on-one meetings and also through group sessions. This was mainly by the teachers. And they also talked to parents on girls' education. So parents were engaged. Remember, the girls and the schools don't exist in isolation. So we needed to bring the communities on board because these girls go back to their communities. Now, what was achieved? So these schools, as I mentioned earlier, they had improved attendance and completion rates. There were improved test scores at the end of the primary cycle. They developed life skills to deal more effectively with issues like FGM. So the way they would do it is they would begin to question some of these practices, and some of the girls are actually choosing alternative rites of passage, which President Banda alluded to earlier in the morning, where the girls don't have to undergo the cut, but there are alternative transitions from childhood to adulthood. They developed leadership skills, and what this does to the young girls, they begin to see themselves as role models to the younger girls, and they aspire to remain in school and succeed. They avoided early marriages. Again, they're able to negotiate. So, of course, this has to be managed because you don't want to backlash with the girls. It reduced school harassments because the girls were now more likely to speak out against these issues and also report it, and reduced risky sexual behavior. Now, there were several problems with the programs. Now, most of them are not age-specific, and yet we know the needs of girls between the age of 10 to 13 are different from girls in late adolescence, but they all seemed to get the same kind of curriculum. Now, conceptual clarity of what mentoring is still remains a challenge for many practitioners. So sometimes they confuse with guidance and counseling, and others pastoral program where there's religious instruction. So there was that issue. Mentors are not carefully selected, so there is the risk of having the vulnerable girls abused. Now, there are very few role models, as we had mentioned, and there has been a trend of picking girls who are not from within the community. But this has a challenge in that when the girl is in a crisis, she needs someone to talk to urgently, and this mentor is far away and may need to come after a year or even longer. Now, the high-risk girls are not carefully selected, so there are programs that choose the girls who are already academically good and are not at risk of dropping out. So the girls who need mentoring most don't get it. So academic skills are overstressed so that the time for mentoring is taken away by having academic instruction. And then communities, they do meet, but as we said earlier in the morning, some of these socio-cultural norms and practices, it's very difficult to discuss them. How do you bring out the issue of the negative cultural issues like FGM and early marriages? Now, for policy recommendations, now there are many more which you can read in the paper, but I've just picked a few, is include communities. You need the men, the women, and the boys if the mentoring program is to succeed. Enforce laws such as anti-FGM and ban on early marriages. So what has happened in Kenya is that the age at which girls are being circumcised is dropping because the girl is most likely not to object. So you'll get the age between 5 and 9 now is more critical. Make teacher training gender sensitive so that to acknowledge that girls, the needs for girls and boys are different, and make mentoring programs age specific. I cannot overemphasize that, so that you can meet the needs of the various adolescents and identify most at-risk girls. For example, girls who have HIV and AIDS or are affected, girls with disabilities, and also girls who are from extremely poor communities or minorities in terms of tribe, language, or religion, and then also widen the mentoring training component to include within the classroom teaching and learning methodologies that are learner-centered, so that the children get to be part of their own learning, and that's the only way they can acquire skills. So thank you. So on that note, I wish to welcome the panel. I wish to welcome Lucy Lake from CAMFED, Eugenie from FAWE Rwanda, and my colleague Christine Okudi. Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks very much, Christine and Joyce, for sharing with us such rich insights and perspectives on the practicalities of mentoring and the provision of life skills and looking towards the institutionalisation of those. That's something that's very close to our work in CAMFED, and so I'm thrilled to be able to join a conversation with you on these issues. And just picking up on a few reflections to what you've been saying and positioning those in relation to some of the work that we've been doing in order to frame out the discussion that we'll have together. Christine, picking up on the senior women teacher, or teacher mentors, I think, as that they're also known, and some of the key issues that we've seen in relation to the role of the senior women teacher. I mean, you mentioned the issue of the support systems for the senior women teacher and how important those are, and I think that's certainly something that we would reflect on as incredibly valuable, particularly because with the kind of psychosocial support that senior women teachers are providing to marginalised girls and the kind of issues that are uncovered, the need for those support systems and the access to the support services so that senior women teachers are not taking on those issues themselves, but are able to refer and to engage in support systems to ensure the appropriate provision of guidance and support is effectively channeled for those girls. But as well, the kind of peer support network for those senior women teachers, recognising that for many it's a very isolated role. Often they're the only female teachers within schools and in very isolated rural schools, and so it can be very isolating. But I think also in looking at the points you raised around how the senior woman teacher is positioned, I think that's also, again, a very critical area. And you mentioned the different kinds of roles that they're expected to conduct, and one of them being around data gathering and the risks that can be involved in that if one hasn't worked through the dynamics of that role in relation to authorities, that they can be seen as policing around issues of attendance and what the repercussions could be on schools and the school heads. And so the positioning in of that role, I think, is critical. And the point around accreditation and that senior women teachers need to be given the credit, need to be recognised for the additional roles that they're taking on, and how can that be incorporated towards credits for salary increments, for example. I think that issue of accreditation is very important. And Joyce, picking up on the issue of mentoring and life skills development, that's an arena that we've worked very closely in around enabling young women school graduates to return to their local schools in the role as learner guide and able to support young people, and particularly girls, in their studies, but also to be able to deliver a life skills curriculum. And to your point around ensuring that that's positioned appropriately and the need to ensure that it's incorporated within the school timetable, it's not seen as an additional extra that can easily be put to one side, but is actually central to the school timetable, I think is a critical point. But also that it's a structured programme, that it's not just 1 or 2 sessions, but that it's embedded as an 18-month, say, in our case, structured programme within schools. And so it is given that attention and longevity that's needed to really facilitate change. And to your point around the fact that there are, girls have very different needs. And again, I think for young women local young women who can act in that way as learner guides, can provide that bridge both to senior women teachers as well as to the wider community in terms of picking up the particular challenges that individual girls may be facing in order that those can be addressed. And again, I think the issue of accreditation is an important one. And in fact, yesterday, CAMFED became an official accrediting centre in order that we can officially now provide internationally recognised qualifications to young women who have taken on this role, recognising that accreditation is very important and that it's not seen as women as senior women teachers or young women taking up the role of learner guide are just taking on additional responsibilities that aren't necessarily recognised appropriately. I do remember a few years ago talking with the permanent secretary in one country in sub-Saharan Africa where she said that there had been a great feminisation of the teaching workforce. And I naively said, well, that's great, knowing that in many of the schools that we work with, there were very few female teachers, and in some cases not any. And the idea that there were going to be more women in the workforce was a great thing. But she said, actually, that's an issue because it means the status of the teaching profession has degraded in the eyes of many. And I think that's an issue for senior women teachers and for those involved in mentoring and provision of life skills, that this isn't seen as a women's issue and for women to take on the additional burden of ensuring that young people acquire those skills, but that it is a recognised and accredited position that is given the appropriate status. So I think the positioning in of these roles and how mentoring is positioned into the school system is a very, very critical one. And I think that what you've raised has given a lot of food for thought and around the interconnectedness of these issues. But I'd like to start by passing on to you, Eugenie, to share some reflections from what you've heard, reflections from Flawi Rwanda, and a bit of insight into your work in what you've been doing in bringing mentoring into the classroom, and indeed looking beyond that at what Flawi has been doing in terms of exploring the possibility of institutionalizing mentoring at a country level.
Okay. Thank you, Lucy. Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, let me thank the Center for University Education for inviting Flawi Rwanda and facilitating me to attend the symposium. I'd like to congratulate the researchers who really did a great work exploring an area that is mostly in our context given very little importance, because our education systems focus mainly on academics and give very little focus on psychosocial issues. So I think it was a very great idea and a big achievement by Christine and Joyce in giving these insights. I think that the role of mentors and senior women teachers is very important in schools, and indeed it needs to be enhanced and being even institutionalized at the policy level and all that. As far as Flawi is concerned, Flawi Rwanda, let me give you a bit of some information regarding the organization. So Flawi Rwanda is a national branch of the Forum for African Women Educationalists, whose vision is a world where gender disparities in education are eliminated and where all girls in Africa access and complete education. Flawi Rwanda was established in 1997, and since that time, it has greatly contributed to the change of attitudes and practices as regards girls' education through different programs. And at first, it had to conduct a lot of awareness raising in the public and also advocacy campaigns. And that has resulted in the increase of the number attending school in the country. We have also conducted or run programs to empower girls through life skills education and also scholarship provision to needy girls who may not be able to complete education if not assisted. And that's where we, through that implementation of scholarship programs, we become aware that financial or material assistance is not enough for the girls to perform. They perform better when the financial assistance is complemented with provision of psychosocial support, and that through mentoring and counseling. And we have privileged mentoring to our beneficiary scholars, to our scholarship beneficiaries. And the mentoring initially was done by alumni. So alumni meaning girls, young ladies who had benefited from scholarship or who had gone to what we call Flawi Centers of Excellence. centers of excellence. There are not many, there are just 2 in the country. So there are schools where we try to implement programs that are very, that helps the girls perform well. So, and well, the mentoring was done, initially it was done by those alumni, but recently we became aware that there is need for adults who are based in the school to support that mentoring that is provided by alumni, because alumni can only go on a quarterly basis because they are in different professions, or they go to schools themselves at university. So that's how we came up with teacher mentors who are in schools. And they try their best to advise the girls on how to perform well, and they also impart some life skills to them, like time management, self-esteem, setting goals, issues regarding adolescent sexual reproductive health and rights, or that kind of skills. The problem, the challenge that they experience in providing mentoring is that they are not trained enough. They are not trained enough. So there is need for more training on how to address different issues pertaining to girls, to adolescent girls. And another challenge is that they are overloaded because they teach, and beside that teaching load, they are also requested to provide mentoring. So just as my colleagues were saying it, I think there is need for clear demarcation of a mentor, his role, and also trying to give enough time for mentoring, not just taking mentoring as an addition that needs to be, that doesn't have enough weight if it has to be effective. Thank you.
Thanks, Virginie. I think that picking up on that issue of overloading, and back, Christina, to you, and what you laid out there in relation to a senior women teacher's role, that list is really quite daunting in terms of the expectations of what she will take on. And I wondered, within that, what's your view on how to ensure that there's a more intentional focus on mentoring and the provision of life skills development, and what kind of training and support does she need in order to really take on that agenda?
Thank you, Lucy. I see skills as a very important part of an ingredient which is missing in all the things that we are doing to support girls' education. But I am happy to note that quite a number of governments, including that of Uganda, has been able to recognize that there is need for skills in the school curriculum. And a number of reforms have taken place to do that. You'll find that there is need for both in-service and teacher training to take place to ensure that the teachers who are in the system are upskilled to be able to become the mentors and the skills teachers that we would like to have, and that those that are being trained to become teachers, it is just part and parcel of the curriculum to help them develop this. I would like to say that I do not want to see skills as an isolated subject, and I would like to see it run through all the subjects and activities within the school. So I would not be looking at life skills as a standalone or skills development as a standalone. And I would look at it built within the system of the school, in that there are various types of the skills that we would like the girls to develop. So in everything that we do, how can we develop and bring out a breadth of skills for these girls to be able to get over the challenges that they are being faced. So I would like to say that it is very important that we have all the teachers get in the system and coming into the system well-trained and supported to provide girls these opportunities. Thank you.
Thanks, Christine. And Joyce, picking up with you and looking at mentoring programs, I'd be interested to hear what you feel are the one or two key ingredients of a good mentoring program. And with that in mind, and thinking about the current situation in Kenya, where there is an opportunity with the mentoring policy to look at, and how would you see that that could best ensure that there is an institutionalization, if you like, of mentoring around life skills within that?
Okay, thank you. So currently, Kenya is in the process of developing a mentoring policy. And one of the things I would propose is institutionalizing of mentoring, as my colleagues have said, so that it's no longer seen as an add-on to it, and time should be allocated. It's already there, but it just gets to be used up with other activities that are seemed to be more important. But there is research that shows that acquisition of the soft skills actually can lead to very high academic achievement. So we need both of them. And then the other thing that I would hope to see in our policy is the structure. Like what Uganda has gone ahead and done, and they have a position, only that it's not well defined. So we need to be clear who will be doing the mentoring. Is it the teacher is important, because as we said, in some places, getting females who are really, who can be role models, they are very few. So in that case is having a teacher with the right skills. So again, look at our teacher professional development. Look at, ensure that there is training on mentoring, how to become a good mentor. And more importantly, also look at the teaching and learning process. Because as Christine says, the acquisition of skills, it's not something you can lecture to people and they pick it and you assume they have it. So the experiential learning that happens in school. So it's looking at teacher professional development and then giving the communities space within the schools. So many times communities feel they don't have something to do with the schools because the level of illiteracy may be very high. It's just ensuring there's a way in which the communities work, because I don't think mentoring can ever work unless there is participation of the community, because it is within the communities that decisions are made about the girls, because these are parents making decisions about their children. So those are some of the things. And the issue of the number of mentors, I think, will remain a challenge. I think it's having a clear selection criteria of those who would most benefit. We all need mentors, but there are those who are at the risk of dropping out of school. So it's getting a clear criteria of who are those girls who would most benefit from mentoring, and then we target them because of the shortage of female teachers and even the alumni.
Thanks, Joyce. I think you've raised many important issues in there, and I think one of them is around bringing more clarity or more focus to that link between the acquisition of those broader life skills and the link to academic outcomes, and that if there is more recognition and opportunity to bring through evidence around that link, then there will be more of an opportunity to convince policymakers of the value of institutionalizing this approach and ensuring that it is integrated within the school timetable alongside academic studies. But you also raised an issue there around the pedagogy and pedagogical approaches, and I'd be interested to hear from you as to what kind of pedagogical approaches do you feel are best placed to help build out that life skills approach?
Okay, thank you. So when you visit most of our classes, we have this teacher who, with the limited resources and knowledge they have, they will put the 10 11, 9-year-old. And this sort of lecture, and there are very few resources that are there, but we can begin looking at storytelling, looking at case studies or scenarios, and let children think through the issues and discuss them. And one of the programs that I saw in building self-esteem, the program that I'm managing, is we simply ask children, when we begin to build their self-esteem as young as they are, is what do you like most? And the child will probably tell you to play. What do you think you're good at? And they will tell you, at least maybe they can count the number of goats in the evening as they are getting into the pen. And you begin building their self-esteem. So it's within the classroom is having children participate in their own learning. There's active learning so that the teacher doesn't take up all the time. And also the curriculum itself must be adjusted to be able not to be so loaded so that the teacher has time to sit and discuss issues with the children.
Yeah. Christine, can I ask you to pick that issue up as well in terms of pedagogical approaches, and then Eugenie, for you to...
Thank you very much, Lucy. For example, in Peace Uganda, what we have done is that we have used the gender-responsive pedagogy, which was thankfully developed by FAWE. And through this pedagogy, we've been able to teach the teachers how to be gender-responsive within the classroom. So you'll find that they are making deliberate efforts specifically to ensure that girls participate within the classroom. So these girls are given the opportunities for teamwork, they're given opportunities to stand up and speak, do project work, as Joyce has said, and this is helping them develop their self-esteem, confidence. They're able to make speeches now and communicate audibly and clearly. So I would think that these pedagogical approaches are very important to bring out these skills in girls.
And Eugenie, if I can ask you to respond to that as well, but also to pick up the issue that came up this morning, which was around girls' rights and to what extent there should be space to include a focus on girls' rights within this kind of approach.
Okay, thank you. I agree with Joyce and Christine, who's saying that experiential learning and gender-responsive pedagogy are very important. They should be part of the training, the teacher's training. Experiential learning should also be based on the needs and interest of the students. I think they will learn better when their needs and interests are identified, yes. As to gender-responsive pedagogy, it's very important because it enables the teachers to know the specific needs of boys and girls and how to address them in the classroom or even outside the classroom. Actually, when a gender-responsive pedagogy is a product of FAWE, and it is taught to teaching and non-teaching staff in a school. So it's not only for teachers, but also all people working in the schools, because they need to know how to address those specific needs I was speaking about, of boys and girls. As to the issue of girls' rights, education is a right. It's not a privilege. It's a right for everyone, be it a boy or a girl. And both boys and girls need to know that they are entitled to education. And how we do that in FAWE, there are clubs that we call Tuseme clubs. Tuseme is an English, it's a Swahili, sorry. It's a Swahili word which means let's speak out. So through the clubs, boys and girls, and mostly girls, so boys join as allies for girls, are taught to claim for their rights, to speak them out, not necessarily in words but they express their rights in artistic ways, like drama, poems, dancing, that kind of thing. So that's how we teach them about their rights, that education is their rights, and that they should be able to claim for it at school and outside the school.
And taking up the issue of the rights and the needs of those who are most marginalised, I mean, Joyce, you just raised the point about the need for a very targeted effort to ensure that those who are most marginalised are getting the appropriate support. And in looking at that in relation at scale and in relation to policy, how would you see that a focus on the most marginalised and ensuring they're getting the appropriate mentoring and support, how can that be positioned at policy level?
Okay, one of the things that can happen is ensuring the distribution of teachers also happens within the marginalized. So in those communities, there are very few teachers, especially female, who are willing to go and live in those places because social infrastructure like banks, like hospitals, are hardly there. So because of such issues, I think the government should think of incentivizing teachers who would be willing to commit at least 5 years to go and work in such places, because the most marginalized, unless there are specific efforts by government, they'll continue to be marginalized. And then again, the marginalized communities or the girls in marginalized communities are not a homogeneous group. So within the marginalized, you can also have the ones who are further marginalized. And I mentioned them. These are minorities living in such communities, minorities in terms of tribes or religion, or children with disabilities or suffer abuse. So again, is how to make sure that the mentoring program, because the mentors are so few, that we actually reach the ones who are at most risk of dropping out of school. So I think it's having a strategy. How do we select them within a community? How do we ensure that the school is able to draw them out? And even if there's just one female teacher, instead of making her responsible for 200 or 300 girls, that at least the 10, the 20 that at the risk of dropping out more actually benefit from mentoring.
Christine, do you want to add anything to that about how you ensure that the needs of the most marginalised are being met and how that can be institutionalised as an approach?
Okay. Thank you, Lucy. I'll try to refer back to the senior woman teacher. Generally, organizations, government have thought about quite a number of ways to support girls who are challenged. And you'll find that everything is generalized. Give them a school. But you'll find that you'll put a school there and still there are certain girls who will not come to school because that is not their problem. So I was looking at the role of the senior woman teacher as a possible position for us to be able to reach those different girls among the marginalized. This is because she's living among them, she's with them, and she is able to even identify them without them coming to her and be able to give that specialized support that they need. Thank you.
Jenny, did you want to say anything about that in relation to FAWE?
I think that for the marginalized, there should be, it's difficult to define criteria for vulnerability, but there should be that effort of defining those criteria to identify those marginalized girls. And even though it's difficult, maybe I can refer to our situation in Rwanda, whereby vulnerability, there are degrees of vulnerability according to those different criteria, and people are put in two categories. of vulnerability. So we should go to those who are most marginalized to bring them to benefit for such, from such services, like mentoring.
And I think that to pick up on that issue of the degrees of vulnerability, I mean, it is within the communities who have the best sense of who is most marginalised and therefore who is in most need of support. And often they're out of the line of sight of schools. And how do you think we can most effectively bridge that divide between home and school? And what role does the mentor or senior women teacher play in helping to bridge that to ensure that there is the opportunity to address the issues that go beyond the school gate? So, Christine, do you want to pick that up?
Lucy. The senior woman teacher, from my survey, I found out that she actually is that bridge between the girl, the community, the parent, and the school. One will find out that when a girl is having a particular problem, they may invite the parent into the school, and it's the senior woman teacher who will do the discussion, who will have the discussions between the parent and the girl, and try to explain to the parent how to support the daughter, and try to explain about the importance of education to the parent. At the same time, the senior woman teacher will go into the community during community meetings and will try to bring out issues about girls' education and why parents should enroll and keep their students within the school. So within the school at the same time, you'll find that she is there to advocate for the girl. She will talk about various issues and ways of supporting the girls to be comfortable within the school environment, and she will encourage and support her fellow teachers to do the same and give these girls the necessary support. So I see it as almost a cycle of a group of people linked right through to be able to pull that girl out of where she is. So the community plays a very big role on its part with the other actors within the school. Thank you.
Thanks. Joyce, do you want to add anything?
I think the other group is, let's not forget the girls. We are talking about the girls, but if we ask them, they know the ones who are at most risk of dropping out. So even as we are having the community discussions, let's not lock out the girls themselves. Let's include them, and they would be able to identify the girls among them, because they talk on their, if you're walking 6 to 10 kilometers every day, you get to talk a lot. So they can tell who is having a problem, who is talking about dropping out of school. So I think let's bring in the girls also to discuss.
And we've been talking a lot about mentoring on this panel, and I think that mentoring can be understood in many different ways, and can, some may view it as including provision of psychosocial support to girls. But it would be good, I think, to get to a common understanding of what we're talking about here when we talk about mentoring. And Christine, if you want to start by just sharing your perspectives in terms of what you've seen and in relation to the role of the senior women teacher, what does mentoring mean for you in practice?
Thank you, Lucy, for that question. I was looking at mentoring as, I could say, a pathway through which the senior woman teacher can do quite a number of things with the girls. From my survey, quite a number of things were identified as the roles and responsibilities of the senior woman teacher. We have the counseling, the skills teacher, health teacher, advocate, name it. But you'll find that through each of these, she has to mentor the girls. So we shouldn't be looking at mentoring as a small, isolated component. We should be looking at it in a broader sense, in that mentoring can be everywhere and anywhere in the activities which the girls are doing. We can use it in all ways to support these girls to be able to stay in school. Thank you.
Eugenie, do you want to pick that up on how FAWE understands mentoring?
For me, and I think for FAWE also, mentoring is a way of, in a different way, well, a way of bringing somebody up to reach a next level through sharing experiences, role modeling, skills development. So to me, a mentor is a person who's committed to facilitate another or a younger one or less experienced one to a higher level.
Joyce, anything to add to bring clarity to the role of mentoring?
I think for us, we look at mentoring as Eugenie has said, a more experienced person, older, and the main characteristic, it should be somebody who's seen to be successful in the eyes of the mentee, and also somebody who is trusted, and somebody who has empathy, because it's about relationship. So when the stronger the relationship is between a mentor and a mentee, the more success there will be. And of course, if there is a time, the relationship, I think research is showing about 2 years, that should be adequate. So it's about looking up to someone and somebody who will be there to guide you as you transition through various aspects. But relationship building is important, and this person must be seen to be successful, because sometimes we import people from outside our communities and imagine they'll be seen as role models because they are role models in their community, and yet they don't seem to be a good fit. So I think that's important. The person must be trusted and seen and admired and be seen as a role model by the mentees and the entire community.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. So we've heard a lot about the role of mentoring and the role of teachers in provision of that mentoring and the support systems needed around teachers to play that role effectively. So I'd like to open it up to the audience and invite any questions to the panel on this.
Thank you, the presenters and the panelists. My name is Mary. I was in the first group of the alumni, the Echidna alumni in 2012, and I conducted my study on mentoring, and therefore I am very, very interested. I have one question that cuts across even from the previous presenter, on the choice of a mentor. I conducted a study on the choice of a mentor when I went back to Kenya among boys and girls in primary school. And what they said, when they look up for a mentor, they look up for a mentor for different issues. And that is where my question is coming. There is a mentor for educational issues. There is a mentor for psychosocial issues, and there is a mentor for other issues. And girls and boys would approach whoever depending on the issue. So in your studies, right from Ganga to the presenters now, was it, did you find out anything in terms of, because you've talked about general mentoring. Was your focus general mentoring or specific mentoring? Was it about all the issues that the teacher is mentoring in all the issues or certain specific issues? Because just to give an example of a study in Rwanda that was done in 2012, the mentoring was done among peers in terms of savings and cash transfers. But it was found that the peers did not succeed in mentoring their colleagues because they were seen to be those who are not experienced, as Joyce has said. They were not experienced to mentor their peers. And therefore, the result was negative. It did not work. So as we move forward in terms of mentoring as a very important tool, I would like the panelists just to give us an overview of the studies they did and whether the direct link between mentoring and the life skills. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. We'll take a couple of other questions before we turn back to the panel. So I see Nora has her hand up. Nora, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, Nora Files Ungai. Thank you very much for a fascinating discussion. I have two questions. The first question starts to bring a different, asks about mentoring in a different way. I'm wondering whether you saw a tension between the role of a mentor as someone who facilitates navigation through or survival within the system of girls' lives, family, school, community, and or whether there's a role as change agent that a mentor might play. So it's actually changing the system in which the girl finds herself. Whether you saw any of that dynamic or whether it came up at all. And my other question is very specifically about the female teacher, the senior teacher, whether there's a risk there. I originally thought this might be a stepping stone to management, but is there a risk that the senior female teacher gets siloed in the role of a female teacher and actually isn't able to take advantage of this new position to step forward into the management level? Thanks.
We'll take one more question. So, yeah, down here.
Thanks for your great presentations and your research. I'm Elisa Phillips from World Vision. Hoping this picks up some of the questions. So I'm particularly interested with the senior women teacher, but anybody can answer as well. Just looking at how the senior women teachers, I think it relates to just certain issues like what girls are able to talk about. They see the senior women teacher as a counselor as well, so many different roles. Just in particular related to maybe gender-based violence and issues like that are girls, again, not just the senior woman teacher, but are they able to go to mentors to talk about if they've experienced gender-based violence? Or I know sometimes the working with peers actually, they want to talk to their peers about it. Like how effective has it been to have the senior woman teacher in that role? Have they been able to really talk about those issues with girls?
Please. Christine, do you want to start by picking up on the issues raised by the three questions?
I'll start with the issue raised by Nora on whether the senior woman teacher will be able to progress in the ranks. And I want to give an example with my work in Peace Uganda, where we have actually elevated the position of senior woman teacher. Within the teaching service of Uganda, they have not given the senior woman teacher position any, can I call it, rank within the education profile. So here what we have done is we've actually positioned it as a step to management. This is because sometimes the senior woman teacher has to make decisions. She is relied on by management for information, and some of this information is sometimes very private, and she has to be seated within the decision makers to be able to make it. So we have positioned it in such a way that we've given them a job description, we've given them the necessary training, and we've put them on the senior management. So the next step to that definitely is that she can actually become a deputy principal, or she can become a head of department. So I do not see it as a problem. I see it instead as a way of strengthening the female teachers. It gives them a career path. They know that if I'm given the opportunity to be a senior woman teacher, tomorrow I can actually be the deputy principal and then the principal. So it sort of encourages them that there's growth, there's a career path which they can follow. Then I would like to look at the question on gender-based violence and whether this is coming up. As I said, everything and anything is talked to the senior woman teacher. This is because of the fact that tradition and culture have made girls fail to talk about things around sex, sexuality, menstruation. So sometimes at home, they undergo violence. And they come to the senior woman teacher, usually for counseling, and they talk about these private things which are happening within the home. so that she can help them think through these problems and see how she can continue the school. Government of Uganda had done a survey on violence against children, and specifically they looked around school. But still, this has helped develop systems on violence. There's a policy right now, and the senior woman teacher has given a role on reporting. So she will definitely have girls coming to report to her more than just the violence within school, but what is happening out of school. And during my research, I actually gave girls questionnaires, and they brought out certain private issues within these questionnaires. And I saw issues of gender-based violence, sexual harassment right from home coming up in this. And they were saying they go to the senior woman teacher for help in these areas. Thank you.
Thanks. And Eugenie, do you want to pick up on any of the questions raised?
I'd like to address the question regarding peers, peer-to-peer mentoring. That is an approach that is used, but sometimes it's not structured well. There is a need to structure it because, I know that in the schools, for example, where we intervene, it happens spontaneously. So some girls think that they can help the others, and we encourage them to do so, but that's not enough. Peers need to be trained. They need to be informed about the issue or the issues we want them to talk to the others. And there is a need also for supporting them. So, for example, giving them a referral system when it comes to issues that they don't understand. Who should they go to, or who should they send their beneficiaries to? A teacher or a counselor, or bringing in a role model from the community, an experienced person, an expert in the area, such things. So it's normal that peer counseling, when it's not structured, when it's not monitored and evaluated, can succeed.
Joyce.
Yeah, I want to respond to Mary's question. I think what we were looking at specifically was barriers to girls' education. So it is to ensure that they remain in school and also succeed. So there are various approaches to mentoring. There is peer-to-peer, as Eugenie has talked about. There is also the part of the role model. So that's just one component. Now, in terms of the question on whether there is tension, I think mentoring on its own, the relationship its own can only achieve so much. There is so much more that is needed for this girl to succeed. For example, the laws we talked about. We need to enforce the anti-FGM laws that we have. We need to enforce the ban on early marriages, for example, like in the Kenyan context, because there are aspects that mentoring cannot be able to solve on its own. And then also, as President Banda in the morning talked about, we need a critical mass of women who can be seen as role models to begin weakening the existing stereotypes that exist in our communities. Because here is a mentor, and there is, in my context, FGM is 73%, or even we think it's higher. So do you go against the tradition, or do you help the girl navigate? I think there's that where you find yourself, you're not sure how to go about it. You also want to protect the girl. And there are a lot of centers where children have been rescued from early marriages, or where they run to. But you can't take all the girls and put them in institutions. That's not the solution. So I think it's to continue working on the issues we are talking about. And as Ganga said earlier in the morning, is the fact that communities are beginning to question the widely held socio-cultural norms. Just to question, does it mean that if I get the cut, now I'm a woman and I'm only 10 years, what really defines a person who's a woman? So I think these discussions, combined with legislation, combined with a critical mass of female role models within those communities is what will begin to change. But for now, there's that tension that exists because we can't remove all the girls and hide them somewhere, you know, that they won't undergo all these things, but we keep at it and we'll get there, as we said in the morning. We'll get there.
Any further questions? Yes.
Hi, my name is Hadi, and I'm from Pakistan. So I am in the conversation regarding who is a mentor. It just occurred to me that we have thought about a lot of themes on who a mentor can be and what kind of attributes he or she should have, but perhaps missed out one, which is that a mentor is also a friend. And we sort of talk about teachers time and again. So, and there's a difference between having a teacher as a mentor and having a friend, an older brother, an older sister as a mentor. And this is coming from the experience in Pakistan, where I've been part of the managing council of one of the largest mentorship programs in Pakistan through the Citizens Foundation in Pakistan. They have a program called Rehbar, in which they have mentored about 16,000 children. So over there, what has worked for us, and I'd like to sort of describe that and also get comments from the panel on this, is that mentors are not teachers. Mentors come and represent themselves as older brothers and sisters, sort of to break that stereotype of the connotation of a teacher. Because once you have teachers as mentors, then you have created a gap between a student and a teacher, who is also often regarded with a lot of dignity and there's a lot of gap in status between the two. But if you come down and break the classroom structure of a teacher and a student, and sort of then engage with the mentees at a more personal level, they're more likely to open up to you and sort of share their problems with you, as opposed to having a teacher who you refer to as madam or sir. So that is something which has really worked for us, and it's probably I'd like to sort of hear from the experiences in Africa, would that sort of elder brother figure, elder sister figure work better as opposed to a teacher figure?
Thanks. I think the issue of the distance between mentor and mentee is a critical one. I think there was one more question that we'll take, well, two. We'll take your question and then Avashi's question.
Hi, thanks. I'm Amanda Mall with CARE, and I'm curious, I know in a lot of contexts, teachers are used as mentors, but we also know teachers are often some of the most overworked civil servants that there are within countries. And so even though they're the most effective a lot of times in terms of connecting and making that connection with students, a lot of times it's adding to an already overfull workload. And so I'm curious, in the research and work that you've done, have you seen any tactics used, or kind of in what ways did the teachers and mentors want appreciation for that role? So for example, in talking to a number of teachers and mentors, I've heard them say they just want recognition for what they're doing at the district level or at the national level or within the communities. They want the recognition that they're doing this extra work and something good is happening. We've also done some work so that some of the additional trainings that they go to can actually count towards their professional development and curriculum, so that it does help with some of their advancement and training and positioning as teachers. And so during the research that you've done and kind of your experiences in work, have you seen any methods in which it worked really well or it didn't work well for recognizing the extra roles of these mentors and teachers?
Thanks. So the final question there with Avashi.
First of all, really thank you for your presentations, and I'm delighted at the turn that, thinking of mentorship, etc., in school and thinking of life skills is really important. I work in India, and we work with girls from very marginalized communities. And in fact, what we've done is in terms of mentorship, we worked in two ways. One is to try and expand teachers' roles through teacher training, very focused teacher training, to include mentorship as part of their roles. And that's really succeeded. We find that the female teachers take to it very well. They don't complain about being overworked, and they weave it into their daily pedagogy and have specific times when they do this, where the students open up to them with all their personal problems. And we found that actually girls open very easily to female teachers, because female teachers have been through those same experiences themselves. And so there's a peer network and there's a student-teacher mentorship relationship as well. The other thing, since you were talking about FGM and early child marriage and how the mentoring isn't enough, what we found to be very successful, and I was wondering if you've done that, is we run campaigns where teachers serve as advocates for girls and help girls to advocate for themselves against issues like child marriage. And they also include the parent community so that these discussions are raised with parent communities during parent-teacher meetings. And we found those campaigns, large-scale campaigns, where girls actually march into the community with this, and parents join them sometimes, supportive parents, against social issues like this, where they do it in solidarity with each other. And we found that that has resulted in a lot of change in parents' perception around these issues. And we use laws very effectively in terms of we inform girls about their laws, inform parents about the laws, and when we intervene, when the teachers, mentors, they also intervene. When they intervene, they will raise the laws. We know that they're not enforced, but sometimes teachers work with social organizations to help them be enforced. So I was just wondering if you've engaged in campaigns against these social issues where teachers and students work together to mobilize communities.
Thanks, Afashi. So if I can ask you just to give a brief response and any final note to the audience from the panel. So Eugenie, if I start with you.
I'd like to address or to give a comment regarding your experience. I think what you say is true, that a mentor is not only somebody who's experienced, but somebody who can become a friend to a younger person. I know some teachers or some people are very good at that. They have the potential. And there are teachers who can just make friends very easily with their students, and others. But even though they have the potential, that needs to be developed through training. But I believe that also all teachers can't be mentors. There are some who can't be mentors, and I think we have to consider also that interest, that commitment, and not force all teachers to be mentors. That's what I believe. So I agree with you that a mentor should be able to be a friend to his or her students. So, as to the experience in Pakistan, I think it's a good program because you bring in all stakeholders. So the parents, the community, the lawyers. So as I think Joyce said it earlier, that mentoring is not just a matter of teachers, it's a matter of all those who are interested in girls' education and who are involved in it directly. Thank you.
Thanks, Christine.
Thank you, Lucy. I would like to talk about the recognition for the teachers and the extra work they are doing. Yes, having the teachers as mentors gives them an extra load, as I noted in my research. However, if provided with the necessary support and support supervision, training, and knowledge and information, these teachers will definitely be able to do this work. So, for example, presently, the senior woman teacher is not paid. But you find that for those whom I talk to, I found some who are very actively involved and have a passion for the work they are doing. They recognize the importance of supporting these girls, and all they are looking for are very small, maybe sometimes not even tangible benefits from the work that they are doing. So it is about making their work a little easier. This is to do with providing them, let's say, with housing, because I found some people given housing, so that she is available all the time. She is able to work even in the evenings, and even at night when it's necessary in the case where they are boarding students. But also you find that they're just asking for certification, you know, something to show a recognition of the work they are doing. In some of the places when I asked about what support are you getting, they'll say that in the staff meeting, I was recognized. And some people are just happy with that, okay? So if it is able to work without physical pay, all I think is that we need just to give the other support in terms of the training, certification, recognition, and I would say that the fact that we can make the the senior woman position as a career path, somebody will work towards it without expecting a pay. We'll know that tomorrow, if I reach that position, I'll be prepared for other things. So I would say that it may not necessarily be extra pay. It is just that extra support. Thank you.
Thanks, Christine. And Joyce, the last word.
Okay, I think before I say my last word, I want to address this question about whether teachers can become mentors. I think they can. About 35 years ago, I met my mentor, who, if I wish my phone was near, when I woke up, I sent her a text, and I wish I could read for you what she sent me. So we've never lost contact. I don't make any major decision without telling her. So we started off as a teacher and, and a student, and the mentoring has continued through life. Now, my final words is mentoring is not a silver bullet to all the barriers to girls' education, but it can help girls to navigate some of the challenges. It can equip them with skills that they need to succeed academically and also for life. So it does have space in the lives of girls.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Christine and Joyce, for sharing the insights from your research and bringing the practicalities of mentoring to the table. And to you, Eugenie, for sharing the perspective from FAWI. So thank you.